The clatter of silverware filled the air, but it was Maverick's smirk that cut sharper than any knife. "Stop playing scientist, Bella," he said, leaning across the table, dismissing her battery project like a child's toy. Her mother laughed brittle and dismissive. Her father barely glanced up. Bella felt the familiar weight of being invisible, her accomplishments trivialized. She didn't cry or argue. Instead, she nodded, quietly, letting a cold, precise calm settle over her. She understood, and in that stillness, her mind turned toward action. 6 months earlier, the Titan EV launch felt like stepping into another world. The converted warehouse in downtown Los Angeles pulsed with strobing blue lights draped in black velvet, a carefully orchestrated stage for a spectacle masquerading as innovation. Reporters jostled. For position, champagne flowed freely and the air vibrated with anticipation. Maverick stood center stage, custom suit immaculately tailored, every inch the charismatic visionary. He radiated confidence, basking in applause, as if the revolution itself had been conjured by his hands alone. The crowd roared at his every word. "This vehicle represents the future," he declared, voice booming through the speakers, unmissable even at the far edges of the hall. 500-mile range, charging in under 20 minutes. "We didn't just build a car, we built a revolution." He grinned, eyes scanning the audience, soaking in every cheer, every click of a camera. In the front row, her parents beamed with unrestrained pride. Sandra and Gary clapped until their hands were red, faces flushed with a thrill of public adoration. "That's our son. He's a genius," they whispered repeatedly to anyone who would listen. Bella, meanwhile, lingered near the emergency exit hoodie and jeans, concealing her identity. Security had already stopped her, twice demanding a badge, assuming she was catering or part of the tech crew. She let them believe it. The shadows were safer than the spotlight. From her vantage point, Bella could see everything. The car on stage was flawless, sleek, modern, perfect for headlines. But she knew the truth behind the facade. Nestled within its reinforced chassis, hidden from every eye but hers, was a solid-state battery pack with energy density that defied industry norms. Every specification Maverick boasted about, every claim of revolutionary engineering, was powered by technology Bella herself had invented, patented, and licensed through Aria Energy, a shell company. No one in the room suspected, least of all her brother. Maverick believed he had secured the genius behind the battery from some reclusive tech firm. In reality, he was basking in the glow of his sister's invention, blissfully unaware. He paraded across the stage, charming reporters, charming the investors, while Bella watched, shoulders heavy with knowledge no one else possessed. It wasn't envy that pressed against her ribs. It was something heavier, a burden of truth. She had built the heart of this so-called revolution, yet she remained invisible, the quiet architect behind the public display. The irony wasn't lost on her. 6 months earlier, Maverick Motors had teetered on the edge of collapse. The initial seed funding had evaporated on office decor and influencer parties. Suppliers were threatening lawsuits, and payroll checks bounced. Her parents had called her in desperation, trembling voices caught between fear and hope. "He just needs a bridge," her father had said. "Bella, he's so close. We put our retirement fund in. If this fails, we lose everything." To him, she was just Bella, the quiet daughter who enjoyed science. He had no idea she'd sold her first startup for $40 million at 22, or that Aria Energy was now valued in the billions. And yet, despite her understanding of the mechanics, despite her foresight, Bella had picked up the phone and authorized a $300 million anonymous investment. She remembered why, because Maverick had once protected her as a child, chasing off bullies to retrieve her stolen bike fists, bloodied but unwavering. That memory had lingered in her mind as a ghost of trust and loyalty. In her quiet, determined way, she became the invisible sponsor, buying her brother a stage he hadn't earned, hoping that maybe, just maybe, he would learn to fly. But that night, standing in the shadows as Maverick soaked in applause, Bella felt the familiar, exhausting weight settle in her chest. She wasn't envious of the spotlight. She was weary of the lie everyone celebrated. The Titan EV was not a revolution in the making. It was a show, a carefully constructed illusion, and she was the engine quietly driving it. While Maverick smiled for cameras, she carried the burden of truth. The knowledge that without her technology, the car could never have existed as promised. Her mind drifted over every detail of the evening, every manufactured cheer, every flash of camera light. The crowd didn't see her, the parents didn't see her, and certainly Maverick never considered the source of his supposed genius. And yet in that darkness, in the quiet of observation, Bella felt a flicker of resolve. Witnessing the world celebrate a lie had always been exhausting, but it also crystallized her purpose. She had given him runway, given her family hope, and held the technology that could change everything. She exhaled slowly, letting the tension roll off her shoulders, though the weight of responsibility remained. The applause still echoed, the champagne glasses still tinkled, and Maverick continued to own a stage built with her hands. And in that moment, hidden in plain sight, Bella understood the depth of the gamble she had made, not just with her invention, but with every decision, every dollar, every silent action taken to sustain a dream that wasn't truly his. It was a delicate dance between pride, duty, and the heavy knowledge that the truth was hers alone to carry. When Bella first saw the warning signs, missed payrolls, suppliers threatening legal action, and the fragile facade of Maverick Motors crumbling, she knew something had to be done. Her parents' panic-laden calls replayed in her mind, trembling voices caught between desperation and fear. Her father, weary and vulnerable, didn't see her as the founder of a billion-dollar energy company. He saw only his quiet daughter who once loved science. And yet, Bella had the means, the knowledge, and the authority to act. She remembered moments from their childhood that anchored her decision. The memory of Maverick, fists bloodied but unwavering, charging at bullies to retrieve her stolen bike, surfaced in vivid detail. She had been 7, he 9, and in that moment he had protected her without hesitation. That memory, both tender and haunting, formed a tether of loyalty and love that even 6 months of professional mismanagement couldn't sever. Despite knowing the chaos he had sown, despite the recklessness she had witnessed firsthand, Bella picked up the phone that night and called her wealth manager. Authorize the investment, she said, voice flat precise. $300 million funneled anonymously through Apex Ventures, a structure designed to shield her involvement entirely. Maverick would never know. Her parents would never understand that she was orchestrating the lifeline. To them, it would remain a miracle, a reprieve from imminent disaster. But for Bella, it was a burden she bore alone, a moral tightrope stretched across loyalty, guilt, and in the cold calculus of business survival. Her mind swirled with conflicting emotions. She couldn't let Maverick fail, not because he had earned it, but because the consequences would ripple through the family she loved and the lives tethered to the company. And yet, she recognized the moral complexity by bailing him out. She was enabling a pattern of recklessness, rewarding poor judgment and buying him a more expensive stage to perform his delusions on. It was exhausting to act as the invisible hand, sustaining both a dream and a lie. Every decision weighed on her like a hidden weight in the chest. She watched from the shadows as Maverick basked in adulation, taking credit for feats he had no right to claim. The applause rang hollow to her ears, a dissonance that echoed the moral ambiguity of her role. She was the silent architect, the unseen financier, the invisible backer, and the family's secret savior. Each day was a delicate balance between preserving hope and confronting reality, between love and the recognition of hard truths. Bella understood the stakes in a way no one else did. The investment was not just money. It was the lifeline for employees, the safety net for her parents, and the instrument through which Maverick's folly could be contained. And yet it was also a cage constraining her own agency, locking her into a role of invisible support while the world celebrated his performance. She carried it all with quiet resolve, knowing that sometimes love demands sacrifice, even when that love sustains illusions, and even when the burden feels like it might break you. 6 months after Bella's covert investment, the chaos she had hoped to mitigate only magnified. Maverick's attention had shifted entirely to spectacle. Funds intended for research and development vanished into extravagant parties, glossy marketing campaigns, and showrooms in Beverly Hills that drained $50,000 a month in rent alone. Instagram models were flown to exotic locales for photo shoots with the Titan EV press coverage, dazzled by the glittering surface while the foundation of the company teetered. It was a circus, and Bella watched from behind the curtain. She had carved out a cover for herself, adopting the role of technical consultant, ostensibly freelancing to justify her presence in the building. It allowed her to monitor the operations without raising questions about her wealth or her investment. But even with access, her voice felt faint against the roar of Maverick's ego. She approached him with reports on thermal management cooling loops and cascade failure risks in the prototype cells. Each warning was precise, backed by simulations and meticulous calculations. Maverick, she said, one Tuesday afternoon, entering the glass-walled office suspended above the factory floor, a command center designed for show as much as function. He was tossing foam basketballs into a wall-mounted hoop while the VP of marketing clapped in mock enthusiasm. "We need to talk about the cooling loops in the prototypes. If a cell goes critical, it could trigger a cascade failure. The car could catch fire." He barely paused, a lazy grin stretching across his face. "Relax, Bella. You're always so dramatic. The engineers say it's fine." "They're cutting corners to meet your launch date," she shot back. "I ran simulations. The risk is real. You need to delay the rollout and redesign the manifold." Finally, he turned, annoyance creeping into his expression. "Delay the rollout? Do you know what that would do to our stock price?" "To the press, I know what they'd say if a family of 4 burns to death on the freeway," she replied evenly. He stepped closer, looming as he had perfected in high school. "Look," he said, voice dripping with condescension. "I know you like your little science projects. You think you're smart because of textbooks, but this is big boy business. Stick to the lab. Let people who understand strategy make the decisions." He patted her shoulder dismissively, as one might pat a dog that had performed a trick. Bella froze for a moment, cheeks burning, but the heat was more than embarrassment. It was outrage. He was standing on the platform she had built, funded, with her money selling the world a dream she had designed, and he reduced her to irrelevance with a single gesture. Her warnings, her innovations, her genius, they were trivial in his eyes. She walked out unnoticed by the staff who avoided her gaze, their eyes reflecting discomfort and silent judgment, while Maverick continued to parade as the master of a stage constructed by someone else. It wasn't just the arrogance that frustrated her, it was the escalating danger. Each corner cut, each display of bravado over prudence increased the risk of failure, of catastrophe. Bella's expertise was a whisper drowned by bluster. Yet she remained observing, warning, calculating, carrying the burden of responsibility for every misstep he refused to acknowledge. The weight of invisibility pressed down, a relentless reminder that brilliance ignored becomes peril, and that patience, no matter how measured, has its limits. The boardroom was tense, a polished glass arena where the stakes of perception and reality collided. Bella sat in the corner, laptop open, taking meticulous notes as Maverick launched into his presentation for a potential retail partner. Slide 4 flashed across the screen, a diagram of the solid-state cell structure, her design, her innovation. And yet he spoke as if it were his own, pointing to the slide with a laser pointer, weaving a narrative of late nights and eureka moments that never existed. Executives shifted uneasily in their seats, glancing at one another, eyebrows raised at the inconsistencies. He stumbled over terms he couldn't spell, mispronounced technical words, yet spoke with the conviction of authority, confident that charisma could override comprehension. Bella's fingers hovered over her keyboard, capturing every misstep, the intellectual theft unfolding in real time. It was infuriating, surreal and painfully familiar, the world applauding a performance built on the foundations she had laid. Then came the dismissal that cut deeper than any mispronunciation. He looked directly at her. "Bella," he said, a smirk playing at the edges of his mouth. "Be a dear and fetch us some coffee." The partners looked thirsty. The room fell silent. The executives exchanged glances, uncomfortable with the absurdity and the condescension. Bella felt the weight of invisibility press down on her shoulders, the reduction of her identity to a menial task in a single sentence. She didn't move. She didn't comply. Instead, she let the moment settle around her, eyes on him, mind racing, and in that charged silence a realization crystallized. She had read about the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias where those with limited ability overestimate their competence because they lack the insight to recognize their own ignorance. That was Maverick. He wasn't just lying about the technology. He believed it was his own, genuinely convinced that charisma and rank conferred understanding. The arrogance, the confidence in his own inadequacy, it wasn't malicious. It was self-delusion, amplified by ignorance. The air in the room seemed heavier each second, stretching taut. Bella recognized the danger now in stark relief. Her silence, her decision to remain in the shadows, had enabled his delusion to flourish unchecked. By not asserting her expertise, by allowing him to take credit, she had inadvertently fed a monster, one whose influence extended beyond boardroom slides, reaching into the safety, finances, and reputation of the company and its stakeholders. A quiet fury coalesced with a deep understanding of responsibility. This wasn't just about being slighted or watching her invention misrepresented. It was about control, about stewardship, about preventing harm that could be catastrophic if left unchecked. Bella's decision crystallized in that moment. She could no longer remain passive. The invisible role she had embraced for months was no longer tenable. She would reclaim authority, assert the truth, and confront the consequences of the illusions that had been allowed to grow. The meeting, intended to showcase Maverick's leadership, had instead illuminated the urgent need for hers. The dinner table was set with the usual pomp roast in the center, fine wine poured into crystal glasses, and a veneer of normalcy that barely concealed the tensions simmering beneath. Maverick leaned back, smirking eyes alight with smug superiority. "Bella, your little battery hobby isn't a real business," he said, as if dismissing her work could erase months of her labor and intellect. Her mother chimed in with a condescending smile, echoing the sentiment. Her father nodded a quiet agreement that stung sharper than any words alone. For a moment, Bella felt the familiar weight settle over her chest, that mix of frustration and exhaustion that came from being unseen. Her contributions minimized her genius, reduced to a parlor trick. But instead of rising panic or tears, a peculiar calm washed over her. The world had always underestimated her, had always treated her expertise as secondary, and yet here she was, still present, still observing, still aware. And in that quiet, deliberate pause, clarity struck. She wasn't just a passive observer anymore. Every microsecond of restraint, every silent support she had offered had been a preparation for this moment. Her patience, her planning, her hidden influence, they were no longer invisible forces sustaining someone else's delusions. She could act. She would act. She finished her meal with composed grace, clearing her plate and helping with the dishes, performing each movement with an almost ceremonial precision. A kiss on her mother's cheek, a nod to her father, small gestures that spoke of familial care. But beneath them, the gears in her mind had already shifted into motion. The passive enabler had become the decisive actor. Each detail of the evening, the mocking tone, the patronizing remarks, the disbelief in her capability fed into a meticulous strategy forming silently in her mind. By the time she walked out to her car, the internal transition was complete. The snap was not loud. It was a quiet, absolute recognition of authority over her own power and intellect. The path forward was clear. She would reclaim control, exercise precision, and set the stage for the decisive actions that would follow in the morning. The calm before the storm had settled around her, and Bella was ready. Monday morning arrived with a quiet sense of inevitability. Bella sat at her desk, high-tech home office, humming with controlled energy, the apartment, the perfect camouflage for the storm she was about to unleash. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, a final moment of calculated pause before she drafted the emails that would irrevocably shift the balance of power. The first was precise and unambiguous. Withdraw the $300 million from Maverick Motors. The second outlined the formal termination of the license for the solid-state battery technology, citing mismanagement and safety concerns. Every word was deliberate, leaving no room for interpretation. 42 minutes later, the ripple began. Her phone lit up with Maverick's frantic calls, each one unanswered. The first text blinked onto the screen, system error. Production line halted, call me. Then another. It counts frozen. What is happening? The confusion and panic were palpable, yet Bella remained seated, calm, methodical. She responded only once. There is now a board meeting at 10 o'clock. I'll see you there. She arrived at the office in her Honda, ironic in its reliability, stepping past the receptionist who looked startled at her confidence. Walking down the hall, the shouting from the boardroom reached her ears. Maverick, red-faced and disoriented, demanding explanations from the CFO. The room was chaos incarnate. Executives whispered phones clutched to ears while her parents lingered in the corner, faces pale with worry. Maverick stopped mid-shout when he saw her disbelief contorting his features. "Get out, Bella," he snapped. "This is a crisis. I don't have time for you." She didn't flinch. She walked past him, pulled out the chair at the head of the table, and sat with unshakable authority. "Get out," she said, voice calm but carrying effortlessly across the room. She tossed a thick file folder onto the polished mahogany, sliding it to the center. "You're waiting for the owner of Apex Ventures," she continued. "You're looking at her. I authorized the $300 million investment 6 months ago to save you from bankruptcy, and this morning I authorized the withdrawal because you're incompetent." The room froze. Maverick stammered, unable to process the reversal. You're broke," he whispered. Executives and parents alike stared, some mouths agape. Bella didn't pause. She pointed to the second document, the cease and desist order revoking the battery license. The air shifted, weighty and absolute as the revelation sank in. She owned Apex Ventures' Aria Energy and the very technology he had claimed as his own. Maverick collapsed into a chair, a puppet with its strings cut. His smirk gone, replaced by raw comprehension. Her parents' shock mirrored the boardroom's tension realization, dawning that the invisible daughter they'd overlooked held the ultimate authority. Bella's calm command filled the space, a contrast to the chaos she had orchestrated. The reversal was complete. Power long ignored now rested firmly in her hands, and every player in the room understood the magnitude of the shift. The restructuring that followed was swift and precise. Bella moved through the company like a surgeon removing executives whose priorities had been vanity and spectacle, promoting engineers and staff who had warned of risks and had demonstrated true competence. Processes were reworked, safety standards reinforced, and operational integrity restored. Each decision reflected her philosophy. Substance over show, foundation over flourish. Maverick, once obsessed with appearances and applause, became a figurehead, a brand ambassador with no authority, while the real work continued under Bella's measured oversight. 6 months later, the Titan EV line was profitable, safe, and sustainable. The hype had faded, replaced by genuine performance and customer trust. Bella walked the factory floor, listening to the hum of the assembly robots, a symphony of precision and consistency. Maverick passed by, pausing only briefly to nod in quiet respect, the arrogance tempered by recognition of her skill and authority. He no longer held the spotlight he once claimed. Yet the company thrived under the careful structures she had put in place. When the workday ended, Bella stepped into her custom prototype, unassuming yet powerful, built with the same meticulous attention to detail that had guided her restructuring. She reflected on the difference between decoration and architecture. One is transient, a display for admiration. The other is enduring, hidden yet essential, the backbone that allows everything above it to stand. She didn't need applause to validate her work. She knew the strength of what she had built. As she drove through the empty streets, engine humming, the world bathed in twilight, she felt a quiet pride in her independence. She had acted decisively, protecting what mattered, asserting her expertise, and reclaiming control over a narrative that had long ignored her. And in that moment, she invited reflection, the choice between building in silence or stepping forward to claim what is rightfully yours. Bella had done both, and the road ahead, like the structures she had designed and protected, stretched with endless possibility, solid, reliable, and entirely her own. Bella's journey took her from the shadows of quiet support to the forefront of decisive leadership. She transformed unseen influence into visible impact, turning patience and expertise into action that reshaped her family and company. As she navigated the delicate balance between loyalty and authority, the lesson became clear sometimes. Building in silence is necessary, but knowing when to step forward is everything. Have you ever found yourself quietly building behind the scenes or taking that bold step to assert control? Share your thoughts below.